I learned about this guy, Dan Wootton, through following Depp and Heard. Dan's somebody who wrote not such nice things about Johnny and other celebrities over the years. And now, as you could see, Dan's got some allegations against him. Now, the problem for Dan is there's more and more coming out from Byline Times, more detail, more conversation, and as they said, more revelations. We'll learn a few things in this video here. Number one, which we learned this week, Dan doesn't like using his own money for things. So it's no surprise that he'd use the son's money to pull some silly little things at hotels and stuff. So the article's new. It's from July 26, 2023. Now, one quick thing. YouTube's got pretty strict rules these days, so I'll be filling in some words here because it's pretty spicy. For example, when I say not safe for work star, you know it's somebody who makes those kind of videos. And I might fill in a few other words, but it'll be pretty clear. Anyway, the article says, Dan Wootton paid not safe for work actors with son's Depp money for covert catfish sex videos. That is one heck of a headline, and the article is not skimpy. Let's see what we got. I'm really starting to like these guys. Still no evidence, but it would probably take Shakespeare and his grandmother to make up something like this. That's just my silly little opinion. GB News presenter Dan Wootton paid not safe for work film actors to meet gay men he had catfished in order to secretly record them having sex, Byline Times can reveal. Wootton rented the Facebook profiles of at least 3 different not safe for work stars for up to £500 a time before posing as them and tricking his targets into meetings to be covertly filmed with cameras he supplied. At least one of these meetings took place in a hotel paid for by Rupert Murdoch's Sun newspaper, of which Wootton was associate editor at the time. And as we learned this week, Dan's asking fans to crowdfund his lawyer bills. So it's consistent that Dan wouldn't want to use his own money for this. Gotta say, it makes sense. The journalist also charged a £1,500 not safe for work star's fee for the private work to his then employer's News UK, disguised as payment to a contract for a front page story about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. What do you know? So Dan wasn't even being straight up about what the payments were for. Fortunately or unfortunately, I'm starting to think already this won't be surprising to a lot of people. The newspaper has interviewed 2 of the not safe for work performers involved and has evidence from another man also paid by Wootton to make secret sex tapes for him. And if they say evidence and they're talking about videos, I gotta assume they've got some videos as evidence, which is always good evidence. Byline Times has also identified 2 of the victims of Wootton's catfishing conspiracy, which is separate to his use of Martin Branning and Maria Joseph to trick scores of other male victims into revealing compromising sexual material. Like we know, allegedly, I still gotta say allegedly, Dan used fake names so people wouldn't know it was him doing these things. And you know what? That makes sense too. For legal reasons, we are not naming the others involved. However, it can be confirmed that 2 have given information to the police about their experiences with Wootton between 2009 and 2016, which is a nice stretch of time that could be packed with evidence, during which time he worked successfully for the now defunct News of the World, the Daily Mail, and the Sun. I don't know all the details. I'm sure some of you know better than me, but I think the Sun ended up getting some money from Depp for lawyer fees and things like that from the UK trial, and then Dan used that money to do some of this stuff. So they stretched it and said it was Depp's money. Essentially, in a way it is. But I thought I'd throw that out there, that probably for the headline. Anyway, it's real interesting, so let's keep going. Are you interested in coming down and filming it? In this 4th part of a special 3-year investigation into Dan Wootton's personal and professional conduct, the male not safe for work stars have revealed how the presenter paid to use their Facebook profiles to target men of interest. So, I mean, Dan says this is made up, it's a political attack to get rid of him. But I mean, if they've got 3 years of evidence, investigation, they've consciously been taking notes on it, they've known they were going to blow this open, I'd guess they've got something. One told this newspaper Dan used to pay us anywhere between £300 and £500 to use our Facebooks. I didn't know these people he was messaging. It was all males. He was messaging as me, basically. So basically, Dan was renting people's Facebooks and posing to be them in a similar way that people claim he was posing to be Martin Branning. Gotta say, makes sense. And then this star goes on to say a couple of details about how Dan was using the account. Asked if Wootton was destroying evidence on a rolling basis as it came up, the entertainer said, yes, Dan was doing it. Do you think Dan would possibly be destroying evidence? Oh, I don't know. My little guess is probably. They claim they needed easy money, which is why they let Dan do it. All right, it's buyable. Look, if someone said to you, $500 per use for your Facebook, most people would be like, okay, what's the worst that could happen? Seems reasonable. And the guy said Dan wouldn't lock him out. He just wanted to share a password, meaning it was shared and the guy also had use. So that made it even more enticing, I'm sure. And then after Dan found someone, he would have the person with the account or his not safe for work friends make a video. And as we know, some of them were without consent, which is the part that's not exactly legal. And they continue the quotes from these not safe for work stars. So he was literally paying people to use their Facebooks and film people doing sex. These people we used to meet, I don't know who they were. I think they were from Dan's circle, and the films were an attempt to get one up on them. So maybe we're talking about, I got a video of you, I control you. There's a word for that. I can't say for certain, but I think it was to get compromising material on people. That's my belief. Why else would you want someone filmed without their knowledge and be so adamant you want it filmed? I gotta say, once again, that makes sense. In 2016, Wootton told the two actors, then aged in their mid-20s, to meet him outside the Sun's offices in London Bridge and issued them with details of a target filming equipment and directional instructions. The first actor said there were 2 cameras and an iPad we had to pick up from Dan from the Baby Shard, whatever that is. He noticed that the iPad was logged into Wootton's Apple iCloud via his Apple ID. Well, I'd call that evidence. I mean, Apple shouldn't lie, should they? I'm guessing they don't really care so much about what happens to Dan and the Sun and all that. The actors Dan was in cahoots with told Dan the people specifically said, we don't want it filmed, but Dan was like, I don't care what they want, we're going to film it. Well, if this stuff is true, we're finding out Dan's not such a nice guy. Is it possible he got along with you-know-who behind the scenes and they kind of think the same? Just saying, my silly little speculation. The people Dan was working with were in the know it was secretly filmed, and they told Dan, we don't want to do this, we'd rather not if the person doesn't know. I guess they went through with it anyway, for the money. So they might be, in some weird way, conspirators legally with, Dan. I don't know exactly how that plays out. They were involved if they knew. But obviously, this was Dan's master plan and him paying them to do these things. I'm not sure exactly who said what here, but basically, they told the people it was for personal use. I mean, obviously, there's not too much else they could say. If it's going to be sold somewhere, at a store or something, then they've got to know. So that makes sense too. They said some of the actors felt like it was a miss, something was wrong, but in the end, I'm assuming many of them went through it anyway, and we don't care about every single one. We care about whether it happened or not and what was going on at certain times with certain people. And here's where I think they get their title from, about Johnny's money. Payments with the Sun's money. So I guess in some way, they consider it partially Johnny's money if they got some legal fees and stuff from Johnny for the Sun case. Okay. A stretch, but fair enough. Fine. Wootton also booked the hotels where some of the meetings took place. Among these occasions was one on June 12, 2016 at the Holiday Inn off London's Commercial Road, close to Wootton's flat at the time. They do say Dan was telling people it was for a Depp vs. Heard story. Maybe that's what they mean by Depp's money because it was about him? Not exactly sure. But in some way, Dan was using Depp's name to move around some funds and get things rolling for his little not safe for work tapes. It actually goes on for quite a bit more, but I think I covered a lot of the details I wanted to here. This could have easily been 2 parts or 3 even. But I figured, alright, let's try a long form video once in a while. As you can see, more and more details. They also say they tried to contact News UK, The Sun's publisher, Mail Online, and GB News, and of course, they got no response, except for the fact Dan said he told them he's getting ready with lawyers, after he asked his fans for money for lawyers, I guess. Let me know what you think in the comments. Byline Times here, in my opinion, I don't know much about them, politically, this and that, but they're doing a great job as far as writing and details. I don't see any typos here, misspells, stuff like that, like I do with a lot of other publications like Rolling Stone, whoever else, People. They seem pretty much on the money. I'm doing pop culture, entertainment, things like that. If you're not subscribed here, consider it. Shout out to Cindy Bryden. She sent me this. Appreciate it, Cindy, if you're still listening or listening at all. If you don't subscribe here, I'll be real sad about it. But if you do subscribe, well, let's just end it. This is a long video. Probably my longest ever. See you next time.